So while we're in the standing position, we're going to be looking at our opponent is establishing a good collar tie on us, and we're going to work on what's called the throw by, right? Also known as a slide by, with our goal of getting that elbow off of our chest and getting it past us. So let's take a look at how this could work. I'm in this tie-up position right here, and my opponent's been successful in establishing a strong collar tie right here, where I've not been necessarily able to win this kind of pummel, right? Or I just want to go straight for my throw by. I like to rest my hand over that bicep, right? I am always maintaining a very important kind of focus on my right arm and kind of where he's at. I want to keep him in front of me, right? And notice my footwork. My left foot is just on the outside of Ian's right foot because I want to be taking this pathway right to his back, right? But right now that elbow, right, it's in my way. So one of the best ways for me to do that, and in jiu-jitsu it's important for us to realize, is I'm not going to win every battle just running through his frames. As I'm leaning in here and I start to put pressure and tension on this, I bring my hand over the bicep. Watch how, as we keep this tension, I start turning my shoulders. Right? As I'm turning my shoulders, that's what helps that hand pop off. So here's a couple things that's happening. My hand is on the bicep. I'm bringing my shoulder up to my ear right here for a really nice pinch, right? Because otherwise this grip is tight, right? And if I just turn, nothing's gonna happen. I gotta go over the bicep. I gotta bring my ear, my shoulder to my ear like I'm talking on the phone. Now, right, I'm gonna be turning my shoulders. It's important for me to look where I wanna go. Because when I start to look with that shoulders pushing on that wrist, now with my arms, I'm pulling him by. Right? My goal from that pull is to start circling immediately. Because I had a good stance, so now I got to start circling, first going to that hip. Notice how I'm still on this collar tie right here. This is going to turn what's called a spiral ride. So think about a spiral going down to the ground. I'm opening my elbow up as I'm opening my left arm into the hip right here. Walking around Ian, just spiraling him down to the ground. Now once I have him down, you see how he's already working on closing the space between the knee and the elbow. And I want to start working my knees in there. I don't want to just bounce off the side, so I keep that spiral ride from the very beginning. Nice and tight on that lat. I'm wrapping all the way at 4 fingers my arm, making a fist and straightening that arm into his hip. So now as I open my elbow up, right, I'm applying a ton of pressure on his right shoulder. When I've opened the space up between his elbow and his knee, I can start sliding my leg in, and it's so much easier for me to pull him all the way around to my back control. In this position right here, you see how I have landed with my left arm underneath him. So I'm making sure that I'm hiding, right, my ear behind his ear. I'm blocking the space so he cannot get his head to the mat, right? That helps me steer my position. I'm working on inside wrist control. So that way when I'm ready, I can either swap sides and start attacking the chokes, or just working on taking that arm out and regaining my control. Once I have an arm underneath the head, I can always swap my head to the top side. So looking at this, it's important that we have to establish that tension with our partner. If my opponent is not giving me any feedback, right, if he's not pushing into me, this throw by is very difficult, right, to accomplish. So some little tricks that I have in order for me to help me kind of bait the guy into pushing in is I use my arm, I use my frame, right, to kind of push into him. In our collar tie video, right, we had talked about using this little whip action with our arm, right? That applies a little psychological effect to your opponents. I get him, he's like, oh, I'm going to get you back, right? And we work into this tension where I'm pushing and Ian is pushing. If I have my footwork ready to go, my hand on the bicep, I'm going to rip that to the side. My goal is to get behind him. Keep that motion going. Keep that momentum to bring them down to the mat, opening them back up. Leaning in, pulling them to the side, capturing those wrists, getting those hooks in nice and quick. Let's do one more, full speed. One of my favorite reasons why I like the throw by is because when I can get behind the elbow, I get to the back. Now you like to use that spiral ride. It can help me stay ahead of my opponent. There's an idea that I want you guys to think about is my opponent is a structure. Now we're just going to use this forearm for an example right now as my hand for control, right? I can grab onto Ian and I can grab onto him really tight. I can tense all my muscles. I can have good control of them, right? There's a little bit of limiting there. Right? What I also want to do is be able to grab onto somebody, but also be able to rotate around them as well. right? And when I get to a position that I want, a better position, I can then tension up, right? So we're going to take that little idea and we're going to show you how we're going to apply this with our throw by and our spiral ride. So I'm in my tie-up position, I have good footwork, and I am just ready to go, right? If I can get ahead of Ian at this point, right, and just hold just enough tension, my goal here is to get my hips behind Ian, right? If I'm not hulking him down right now, I'm ahead of him, I'm using just what I need to kind of hold this position, and that's going to make him think he has a chance to defend this position. He goes down to turtle, right, and I'm just holding just enough, and I'm sliding that knee over. He feels the space between my hips and his. Could I obviously like hop onto him right away and just look to control and have these double underhooks? Absolutely. But now I got to really deal with breaking possibly a strong turtle down. Instead, I can keep that spiral ride, keep my hips up, and as I see him, feel him sit, right, I can follow him, right? See how I chopped my knee right below him. As I sit to the other side, I'm using my spiral ride grip to pull him across, and when I do that, he's going to land right in the crook of my leg. Easy setup for my body triangle right here. So using your timing and your momentum is really important. I want to get just ahead of my opponent, right? That's my goal. I get just ahead of him. Now I just follow him down. When he turtles, he still feels that space. He's going to sit, and I'm going to lock that up nice and tight. Making sure that I gain that inside control here. To make this really terrible for my opponent, right? I start to compress my legs. Let's turn this way a little bit. To make this really terrible, I have my body triangle. It's important when I have this body triangle that I want to be up nice and high. So I'm using this leg to kind of chop my heel up towards the rib cage. That's going to allow me to bring my leg, making sure my knee is tight to it so I can lock over. Don't have your knee up. It's hard to lock that triangle from there. Turn your knee in to lock. Now when I want to extend him out, if he's trying to get away, I can use my hook behind him, right, to manipulate his leg. So now he's only got one leg on the ground. I can start to arch my hips and pull this tight for a lot of good compression, cooking my opponent, right? And then I'm working on sliding underneath, clearing out those grips for a really nice tight rear naked choke. Let's do it one more time.